This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview.
Hello and welcome back, of course, to the Research Talks here from Stockbox with Alan Green. Alan, how are you doing this week?
I'm good, thank you, Mark. Yeah, a lovely sunny day down here, which is good. Indian summer, I suppose, has finally reached the UK. We seem to have a period of benign weather, which is always good, so we can actually get out and do stuff.
Well, indeed, and I'm very close to you in proximity. I'm in Chichester this weekend, just for a weekend, before I head up to London for meetings and interviews on Monday with different people. So do stand by. Monday, can't say who we're going to be talking to at the moment. Maybe one or two will be live if we can make it work. Otherwise, interviews will be out with a few companies later on Monday or indeed on Tuesday. But yeah, you're right. Lovely little sunny day today down here in the south. So looking forward to getting out and having a look around Chichester and the surrounding areas, seeing what it's all about. My first time down here, Alan.
It's a lovely town. You've got, well, of course, Chichester Cathedral is very famous, but you've got Goodwood Racing Circuit, of course, Goodwood Horse Racing, Goodwood House, and lots of other attractions around the area. And of course, if you head towards the sea, you've got Hayling Island and Emsworth just down the road. Lovely part of the world.
Yeah, well, I like what I see so far. That's for sure. Yeah, so yeah, I'll let you know what I think next week when we catch up. But today we're going to be talking about Cadence Minerals, first of all, and ECR Minerals, and then we're going to finish off with Global Petroleum, which of course has been doing quite well and catching some of the headlines and the interest of private investors in the last sort of week or two. So we're going to start with Cadence Minerals. And Alan, I know we've talked about Cadence before and the sort of value disconnect with a mapper and of course the big iron ore project, but let's just get a bit of a reminder of where things are with Cadence and perhaps what we could expect, maybe some catalyst events that might help bring some value into that stock.
Yes, it has baffled me. I have to say. I mean, Cadence is currently the shares closed the week out at 2.4p, and that gives the company a valuation of just 5.4 million, which is frankly absurd for the assets the company has in its portfolio, and in particular, of course, the flagship asset, which is the Amapá iron ore project in Brazil. And this project has evolved over many years. The company first got involved with the project in 2019 and effectively bought this huge iron ore mine, the infrastructure, which includes the railway, which runs all the way to the port of Amapá, and also, the port of Santana, and of course the actual port itself, which is all part of the asset owned by the local company Dev Mineração, and it has been an asset which Cadence and the company Dev have actually been working with the local authorities to bring the asset out of administration in the first instance, and then of course to recommission it. And many studies later, we're now really well on track to getting the mine recommissioned and back up and running. There have been a number of modifications at Santana Port, and Kieran Mazario, the chief executive, often goes to Brazil and reports back, and he's done a lot of live video over there where you've seen him talking from the mine, talking from the port, so you can get a real sense of how things are progressing. But I think what I just want to do is to go back to the note that was published by Edison Research back in April this year, and it's important to understand that since this note was published, things have moved on from that point. The Edison said back in April that the year is going to be important for Amapá. It's a hugely important year. The optimization study that points to the potential to increase production by 4.8% and also lower plant commissioning costs by 33%. That's all been proven now. And of course, Cadence announced back in mid-September that the environmental licensing and testing of the 67% green iron processing flow sheet is due for completion in the fourth quarter. So that'll be another milestone. All of the other licensing elements are on schedule. The installation licenses for the Amapa mine and railway are on schedule to be granted this year. The license application from the port submitted in September, also scheduled to be granted this year. And Cadence is also actively discussing the equity portion of project financing to complement the existing debt financing arrangement the company has with Sonoma. And it's all of these elements that are coming together that are adding and building value. And of course, at this point in time, Cadence has invested a total of $14.2 million in developing the asset. It has an equity stake of 34.5%. And that equity stake, if you look in the books previously, you go back to the previous ownership, the mine was valued by Anglo American, who owned the mine back in 2012. It gave it a book value then of $600 million. So you can get some idea of the numbers and the infrastructure that's here. Since Anglo owned it, the actual asset and the MRE, the mineral reserve estimate, has been increased substantially. So there is more in the ground than was previously thought, and that's been all part of the feasibility study that's underway. But as I say, the green iron flow sheet that the company is working on is it's working towards producing higher quality iron ore, and also in the process decarbonizing the industry by replacing blast furnaces. So a structure and a system is now in place and is being tested and of course we're going to have the report back on that in the coming months, and here we are now in October, so that's going to be very close. But back to the Edison note, in terms of the actual valuation, Cadence's Edison stated that its principal asset is, of course, the interest, the 34.5% stake in Amapa. Back in April, when this note was written, the ownership was 33.6%. Edison attributed a valuation to Amapa of 23.9 pence per share. So that's at 33.6%. Given the progress since that time, I would say that's probably increased in value, but obviously, there are no numbers and workings from Edison yet to support that. And then, of course, in addition to Amapa, we have the stakes the company owns in European Metals Holdings, which is the Sinovac lithium and tin project. The company has a small stake there. It also has a large stake. It's the largest single shareholder in Evergreen Lithium, which has a lithium project, the Bino project in the Northern Territories in Australia, which is adjacent to Core Lithium's Finniss project, which has a substantial valuation. So all of these together give the company a total valuation of just under 30 pence per share. And here we are at 2.4p. And I think we've spoken on many occasions, Mark, about the fact that companies are substantially undervalued in the current marketplace. But I think this is probably the most extreme example of that. And it baffles me because in terms of the risk profile, in terms of the quality of the asset, Amapa is on the home run it's on a home run, and it will recommence production. So if it's compared, say, to a greenfield project where the company maybe has discovered an geological anomaly underground, and there's a value assigned to that. This is right at the other end of the scale. So it's at some stage, I'm certain that the value will be realized, and there'll be a big correction in the share price. But maybe it needs this process, so the licensing, the licensing grants and everything else. Once those licenses are granted, then I'm sure we'll start to see some positive movement in the company and in the share price. But the team continues the work on the ground. Regardless of the disconnect in the markets, the work is continuing, and it's continuing on schedule. So there's going to be a lot of news from the company in the fourth quarter, and I'm sure at some point we're going to start to see a movement in the share price that actually starts to address this big valuation gap.
Okay, and those licenses, Alan, I mean, when are you perhaps expecting those to come through?
Well, they're on schedule. The company expects them to be, the installation licenses for the mine and the railway are on schedule to be granted this year. And Kieran said last year, I think, when you've interviewed him previously, Mark, he said that they're on schedule for the licenses to be granted in the fourth quarter of 2024. And of course, here we are now in that fourth quarter. So I think we can expect some news very, very, very shortly. Also, that green iron flow sheet, that will be completed in the fourth quarter of this year. And also the license application for the port was submitted September last year, and is also scheduled to be granted this year as well. So there's an awful lot that is on schedule to happen in the fourth quarter. And maybe that'll be the catalyst that will trigger the long overdue re-rating in the share price.
Okay. Well, thank you, Alan. So let's talk about ECR Minerals then, and what's been going on with ECR, of course, getting active on the ground.
Yeah, it's been a very active week in terms of news flow. Of course, the company has a number of assets across Australia. It also has up to 75 million Australian dollars of unutilized tax losses incurred during previous operations. And those tax losses are being actively marketed by a company that specializes in this area. And it's thought at some stage that will release, it won't release the full 75 million, of course, because the company will take a commission too, but potentially that's money that, or a substantial sum of money that can come into ECR's coffers. And of course, in terms of financial prudence, Nick Tulloch, the chairman, Mike Whitlow, the MD, they've managed the company finances extremely well during their tenure, and they've both of them have been in place for just on a year now. The company was able to sell one of its properties, the property at Nagambie Rushworth Road in the close to the Bayliston project last year. That raised several $100,000 Australian dollars. The company had plant, so the Midas drill rig, and also a brand new drill rig, which the company sold, and they sold on a finance deal to another company, and they're receiving payments of 33,000 Australian dollars per month from that, and also additional plant, bulldozers and other bits and pieces were sold on as well. There is another property owned by the company at the Creswick project, Springmount Road or Lane, and the company has applied for planning permission to build a house on the acreage that's there. And of course, if they once that's granted, it'll be a lot easier to sell the land with planning permission. So the company has adequate financial assets in place and money and resources in place to ensure that all of its activities, certainly for this year, are fully funded. Added to which, of course, the board are taking their remuneration in shares, and in that way they've fully aligned themselves with shareholders. and we've seen a positive reaction in the share price over the year on the back of that. So in regard to the Victoria assets, there's an awful lot happening. In some of the at Baillieston, first of all, some of the drill core there was re-examined, and they just antimony was discovered. And of course, antimony is an important mineral, both as a pathfinder for gold, but it also has a number of other industrial uses too. And the sample that was tested, one of the samples that was tested, revealed 32% antimony, which is an absolutely huge amount in comparison to when you consider, the average is normally about sort of 1% to 2%. So that's extremely encouraging. Also in Victoria, the company has the Tambo asset that's in eastern Victoria, and at the historic Duke of Cornwall mine, the company has appointed a drilling contractor to commence works. Some of the samples there put in some pretty impressive numbers. There was a sample that revealed 51.5 grams per ton of gold, one of many samples taken from the Duke of Cornwall mine. So we'll have news on that drilling and developments on the drilling to talk about certainly in the coming weeks. We then move further north. We go to the Queensland area, where the company has several assets. The Blue Mountain project, which is that also includes the Denny Gully Gold project. The company has been undertaking trenching and soil sample work there, and across a sample of 15.5 cubic meters, the company was discovered an average of 9.9 grams per ton, and also visible gold. Some of the samples were as high as 192 grams per ton and 97 grams per ton. So that also is progressing, and we're going to have more news from Blue Mountain. The company has also recently renewed the licenses there, which means it's got another 5 years to progress and develop the project as well. But this week, the big news really came from the company's Lulworth project, which is where Adam Jones and the field team have been painstakingly working their way across what is a huge area. Now, Lulworth region, it's famous for a number of historic mines. You have the Charters Towers gold mine, Pajingo, and a number of other mines, and lots of historical working. So as Adam has travelled around the place, we've seen on social media lots of really old workings, old mine shafts, and old mining equipment just left abandoned. So it's a very fertile area for that. So Adam and the team have narrowed down a number of prospects, and one of which is wonderfully named Uncle Terry's prospect. And the Uncle Terry's prospect revealed a number of gold samples, 75 grams per ton rock chip samples at Uncle Terry's. Also at Oakey Creek, the company has made a discovery of the rare earth metal niobium, and also tantalum as well. But it was announced this week that the company is working now in partnership with the Geological Survey of Queensland, the GSQ, to investigate critical minerals potential at the Lulworth project. During September, the Geological Survey team visited Lulworth. They undertook sample collections, and those samples are being taken away by them to be tested and independently verified. And of course, that's hugely important. It's having receiving third-party validation like this it really moves the project up to a different level now. And Adam said when in his statement with the announcement that it's obviously hugely important for the Lulworth project, but also on a wider level, it's hugely significant for the area as a whole. And of course, if the geological survey identifies meaningful amounts of rare earths and critical minerals across the samples that they've taken, then that could have implications for the area in terms of employment and everything else that it could bring with it. So I remember going all the way back to Craig Brown days. Paul Craig, of course, sadly died a couple of years ago. But Craig was very enthusiastic about the potential in Lulworth, and Adam Jones has always been hugely enthusiastic about it. And it's great to see now that their enthusiasm was so well placed, because backing and validation like this from the Geological Survey of Queensland is a hugely important step. So there's a real mixture of progress, lots of stuff happening. So in the coming weeks, we're going to be hearing from Tambo and the drilling results there. Hopefully, we'll get some good early news. We're going to be hearing more from the Blue Mountain project, and of course, also the further news from Bayliston in regard to the antimonies that they've located there, and of course Lulworth too. So plenty of news to come. Share price is currently a little on the depressed side. It's dropped back down to 0.23p, but it's very much in its trading range. We've seen the shares, of course, hit as high as 44p this year. But so I think at this level, if investors are considering picking up stock at 0.23, 0.24p, it's a good entry level, because I think for positive news from drilling, from Tambo, from Lulworth, from Bayliston and Blue Mountain, all of those are going to be catalysts to drive the share price back, hopefully back above 0.3p and beyond.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Alan, for that. I know I spoke to Mike Whitlow the other week on the getting active on the ground there, and as you've reiterated, I mean, Mike and Nick are really aligning themselves with shareholders. Of course, Mike's got a lot of experience being on the other side of the fence there. Did you say taking shares in lieu of salary, putting money into the ground where it needs to be to do what exploration companies should do, and should certainly not be scared of doing? The general situation in the markets at the moment is what it is, unfortunately, isn't it? I mean, there's not really much we can do about that. I think, well, I can't make predictions. No one can make predictions. But as we get through this budget in the UK, and then, of course, the United States elections, then I think things might remain a little bit choppy and uncertain until those two things are out the way, and then maybe we'll see a bit of a run into run into year end. So it is what it is. But now's the time to be. You look across the board, everything's down, isn't it? I mean, really, literally everything is down. And when everyone's talking about fear, it's the time to be buying. Buy when it feels like swallowing broken glass is the phrase I was told. And it's the hardest thing to do, isn't it? It's the hardest thing to do. It's the only market where you don't buy more when the discount signs are up, when the sales are on. And when everything's really expensive, it's just it's human psychology. But now's the time to be looking at those undervalued companies and picking the ones that perhaps you think, with the board, are aligned with shareholders, are doing the right things, are taking those risks, albeit mitigated risks as best they can be, and effectively positioning themselves for discovery, for things for the tide to come back in, where all boats will rise, and some will do much better than others depending on how they've acted in this time. So. Yeah, it's good to be talking about all these stocks now. Of course, the one outperformer, of course, is Global Petroleum, though, isn't it? I mean, that's certainly been catching the attention of investors these last couple of weeks, and it's the first time we've spoken about Global Petroleum. So, I know you've done your research. Enlighten me and everyone else who's not sure on the investment case for Global Petroleum.
This is a really interesting company, actually, Mark. And of course, we were talking about Namibia before we came on air. This is one of the primary project focuses for the company. So Global Petroleum listed on AIM, shares are traded as low as 0.04p on the year, as high as 0.29p, which is of course where the shares are trading now. And it's had a pretty impressive start to October. Shares are rocketed from 0.075p up to 0.25 or 0.29p. So there are three primary assets. I mean, two really are key in driving the share price. But there's been a big change in terms of the structure within the company. In September, Omar Ahmed and Hamza Chowdhury were brought in as the new chief executive and the new chief finance officer. Omar, of course, is he's an active long-term investor. He's also represents family offices and works with family offices, and is very much an expert in the small cap field. Similar with the chief finance officer, Hamza Chowdhury. He's also a professional investor, also an accountant as well by trade. So two very experienced finance operators and guys experienced in investing into companies in this sector and also in the small cap sector. The company raised 250,000 in August, but also back in July, Omar Ahmed provided Global Petroleum with a $270,000 loan, and the terms of that have now been extended to September 30th, 2025. So that's a very positive sign. And obviously, when you've got a CEO that comes in and he's got skin in the game and he puts that sort of money in, it's time to sit up and take notice. And I think that's why we've seen the big spike in the share price. So the company's primary asset is offshore Namibia. The company has a 78% interest in license PEL 94 offshore Namibia. The other interest, or the other or the remaining 22% is owned. 70% is owned by Namcar, and 5% is owned by Allo, which is a local company. Now, this license has up to 3.5 billion gross mean prospective resources, and that's of course oil across 9 prospects, 2 of which have been mapped on seismic data. Discussions are currently underway with an operating partner for a farm-in agreement, but when you look at the map of the licenses, you will see license PL 94 is smack bang in the middle of a bunch of operating licenses owned by the oil majors. So you've got ExxonMobil, Total Energies, Shell, and Galp, all of which have proved up a new license area, which is underpinned by a geological anomaly known as the Kudu Shale Rock. The surrounding licenses, Chevron, for instance, have farmed in with partners to license PEL 90. Woodside Petroleum have farmed into license PEL 87. And Azule Energy, which is a joint venture between BP and ENI, are also farming in as well. The latest presentation, which can be found on the company website, which shows that map very clearly. It shows the operators around. So it's a really exciting juncture for the company to develop this and also work with a farming partner. And it does appear that this geological anomaly, the Kudu Shale Rock, runs across this entire area. So it will certainly be in the interest of the majors operating within the area to work with Global Petroleum to develop the license. So the second interest the company has is an 80% interest in the Juno project in Western Australia. And this is a Havieran style, Havieran, of course, being Greatland Gold, a Havieran style intrusion related gold system. So license or exploration license 3497 is owned by Callum Baxter, who is a geologist of over 30 years experience and also one of the co-founders of Greatland Gold. So he's discovered this and noted that the geology, the anomalies that are in the ground are very similar to what he was responsible for discovering at Greatland Gold. So that's a huge, exciting development. The company's also announced in mid-September that it applied for 2 further exploration licenses. So it's increased the area that the group are operating in from 106 square kilometers to 450 square kilometers, and that, of course, will be worked by Callum and the team that are on the ground there. The historical data from previous work is fairly poor, but with the loan that Omar has provided to the group, and also the fundraise that the company implemented in August, the company is going to implement an airborne aeromagnetic survey, and from that the data will be modelled and drill holes will be planned from that. So I think we can expect in the coming months that we're going to get a lot of news from Australia. The company also has, as its third asset, it's got four permits which it's applied for in the southern Adriatic, and that's offshore Italy, offshore Montenegro, Albania, and Croatia. The focus is on gas, and once the permits have been approved then and issued, then the company's going to seek a farming partner to develop that. But in short, new board has come in. The chief executive has loaned the company $270,000, and he's extended the term of that loan to next year. The company's just raised $250,000, so a lot of progress at the Juno project in Australia, and of course the offshore license in Namibia is hugely exciting. And I think when we hear about developments with the farming partner, which I've no doubt will be one of the big players in the industry, I think we're going to see the share price move a lot higher than it currently is.
Okay, so it's oil in Namibia, gold in Australia, and then gas, did you say, Alan?
Yeah, there are four gas permits which are offshore. So again, if you go to the company website and look at the latest presentation on the presentations page, it's a very good presentation, and you'll clearly see the maps, but it will show you where the permits are located that they've applied for.
Okay.
They're seeking gas there, and they will be seeking a farming partner at the appropriate time, obviously when the permits have been issued.
Okay, yeah, so that's quite diverse, isn't it? You don't often find a company in gold exploration and oil and gas exploration, but I mean, fair enough. And as you say, you know the farming agreement there, certainly with Namibia, looks like, you know, from reading some of the latest RNSs and CEO comments, that it could be quite nearing completion. So this is definitely one to watch, certainly given the interest, as you say, the backing as well by the. It was the CEO, was it, that did the loan?
Yeah. The CEO, Omar Ahmed, loaned the company $270,000. So there's the loan. They also raised £250,000 in the market in August. So the company's, you know, well funded to complete what it needs to complete. But also, because if you look at the structure of the board, Omar Ahmed and Hamza Chowdhury, you know, these guys are professional investors, and they have obviously income from other work as well. So they're not putting huge financial pressure on the company in terms of drawing a large salary out. So it's actually an interesting play, this, because I think you've got these diverse assets, but certainly two of them, the Namibia asset, and of course the Juno project in Australia, are at a pivotal stage. And I think, you know, we can expect value inflection points in the near term from both those assets. So it's interesting, and I think exciting. And, you know, certainly, I mean, here we are now, the company's got a market capitalization of $9.5 million, but, you know, any movement on either of those projects, and we're going to see it push a lot higher.
Yeah, it's still quite low, isn't it? Excellent. Well, thank you, Alan. That's piqued my interest. And I'm going to do my own research into that. Maybe we can line up some interviews with the company. That would be a job for the Stockbox team to try and sort out. But thank you very much, Alan, as always, for your time. I do wish you a very pleasant weekend. Enjoy the Indian summer, as you referred to it at the start, and let's catch up next week.
Indeed. Catch up next week, Mark. Have a good weekend.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like, or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.